Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. A generation goes and a generation comes, but the earth remains forever. As Jonathan reminded us a few moments ago, so begins the book of Ecclesiastes. And we've heard a few passages from that this morning. To everything there is a season and a time for every purpose under heaven. In Judaism, Ecclesiastes is read this week during Sukkot, which is an autumn harvest festival. And the writer of that book grapples with the meaning of life. The lines serve as a reminder to our oh so human selves that no matter how much we love this world, no matter how much we may try to hang on to it, to hang on to this very moment, that we are temporary sojourners on earth. So if you've been coming to worship here for a little while, you might remember that Sukkot is my very favorite of all the Jewish holidays. And if you've been coming here for a little while, or if you have Jewish friends, you know that there are a lot of Jewish holidays to choose from to be your favorite. And this is mine, and it is called the Season of Our Joy. And it arrives right after the high holy days, these days of awe, where observant Jews ask to be written into the book of life for one more year. And there's an entire day set aside to ask for atonement, to ask to be reconciled with some actions maybe you had in the past year that weren't in process of you living into the life that you know you want to live. And so a highlight of Sukkot is building a sukkah outside your home, and it's a temporary structure, and it's basically a 3-sided outdoor room. So for about 8 days, you get an entirely new room outside that you get to decorate with all of your favorite fall decorations, and its ceiling is made of greenery. And so we're supposed to eat out there, and some people sleep out there as well during the week. And I'll tell you that our cats really love our sukkah. We have one cat, and I know she's Jewish because she wants to eat our challah every Friday night, and Kika, loves the sukkah. Well, when we're out in the sukkah, this kind of open-aired temporary structure, it's a reminder that our bodies and our souls are indeed connected to nature, that we are indeed connected to the stars above us. And we sit in this structure that is strong enough to last for 8 days, but it's also really fragile. And it's a reminder of our own very strong and yet fragile lives. So I wondered about, during this holiday that's really one of abundance, why is it that the book that's read in synagogue, why does it begin with these lines, vanity of vanities, all is vanity? It seemed to be a little off in terms of this season of joy. And so obviously I'm lucky enough to have my very own husband, rabbi, teacher that is there to tell me all about these things. And Jonathan let me know that the opening lines in Hebrew read, Havel, Havelim, Hakol, Havel. And the translation of Havel is really close to mere breath or vapor or mist, so that instead we could read it as breath is breath, all is breath. It sounds a little bit better to me than vanity of vanities. And so this harvest festival that comes right as the light is shifting toward winter, each evening bringing darkness just a little bit earlier, anticipating, we hope, the rains that are to come this winter. It grounds us to earth, and it reminds us of questions that are so fundamental to us as humans. Questions like, what is our purpose here? What does it mean to be human? How can we be in whole and holy relationship with ourselves, with each other, with our planet? And so all summer, I anticipated this week in our sukkah, filling our outdoor room with decorations, filling it with people, filling it with laughter and food and cats from the neighborhood. And as many of you know, that instead of spending this past week, spending my evenings in the sukkah, that instead I spent last week enclosed within the 4 pretty sterile walls of a hospital room. And it was my mom's hospital room, not mine. And I sat by her bedside watching her in this particular season of her life. Havel Havalim, breath is breath. And so instead of offering blessings, abundant blessings over the Sukkot wine and challah, we offered blessings over each small step that my mom has been making toward a recovery after a bad fall and a pretty intense surgery that resulted because of that fall. So each day and night that she breathed on her own without the help of a breathing machine, it became an answer to prayers and hopes and wishes that she would find herself in another day. And the prayers and wishes and hopes that this was my mom's time to heal and my mom's time to build up, not yet a time of letting go. If you've ever been close to losing your own life, or if you've ever been with a loved one who has been close to losing their life, you know the feeling of the world receding. And pretty soon, your reality becomes that room, that space, those people, and you're hanging on together, literally, for dear life. Your life or your loved ones, that life's not in your hands. It's partially in the hands of medical staff who you may or may not have some relationship with. And it's an exercise in trust and vulnerability and hope, living in a land of what-ifs and uncertainties. Havel Havalim, what is the purpose of this life? This fall, in some of our worship services, we've considered a few theological concepts, and we've used the imagery of a tree to base those on. And in September, we began with our roots, our theological roots, and this idea that connects most, but not all of us here, regardless of how you may believe about a God or a not God, but this belief that God, not God, universe, all that is, it is ever-changing, that our revelation is not sealed, and there's always new truth to be discovered. And from those roots, we moved up into the body or shape of that tree, and we considered what continues to shape us as religious community, as religious people, and it is each other. It's this covenanted community. And you all are the heartwood of our troop tree, the community where we encourage each other to spiritual growth. It's this heartwood place where we expect mindful, thoughtful communication with each other, and where we pursue the well-being of all life and the planet itself. And so today, these questions that Ecclesiastes brings us: what is our purpose? What does it mean to be human? How can we be in whole and holy relationship? These questions move us away from this trunk and really underneath the shady shelter of the tree canopy. And they move us to consider our theological anthropology, or basically, what does it mean to be human? And one answer to that question determines how we decide to shelter one another. And so very broadly speaking, Unitarian Universalism has been based in this idea that there is indeed a divine spark in each and every one of you. And of course, this idea came at a time in American religious history where that was not the prevailing thought of the day. When the prevailing thought of the day in the early 1800s was there was an essential depravity in every human. And so the fact that the Unitarians and the Universalists said, no, humanity is ultimately and intrinsically good, was a big deal. And that's why our ancestors were considered heretical in their day. And so we also understand that while any one of us may make mistakes, while any one of us have pasts where we can say, yes, I made a really bad choice at that time in my life, that these divine origins are never fully erased. The Universalists preached early on that there is a great circle of enabling love and it embraces all the living. And our first UU principle then, our contemporary first UU principle, is grounded in that very belief. When we say we affirm the inherent worth and dignity of every being, it's traced directly back to those early origins of the divine spark in each and every one of us. The spark of divinity that we carry, it's not meant to be cradled in solitude, all alone, out on a hilltop somewhere. Rather, we have a moral imperative to share our light, and we do that by loving and caring for one another. In essence, we create sheltering rooms for each other. We make that great circle of enabling love come to life. It is we who do that each and every day. Elie Wiesel wrote about this. He said, sanctuary is often something very small, not a grandiose gesture, but a small gesture toward alleviating human suffering and preventing humiliation. Sanctuary is a human being. Sanctuary is a dream. That is why you are here, and that is why I am here. We are here because of one another. We are, in truth, each other's shelter. Watching my mom in the hospital, first the days she was unconscious and not aware that any of us were around, and then slowly followed by her growing awareness, I felt really helpless. The doctors and nurses and medical staff, they all had their roles. They would zoom into her room and they had things to check off and things to connect with, and they really had a purpose in my mom's healing. They were teaching her slowly how to move her arms and legs again. Today, they are slowly teaching her how to talk again. Her body's healing process, the medical team does a lot, absolutely. But as I watched her, I was just also thinking about how much of the healing is left to really mystery and miracle. There's not a way to control it. And I watched her and thought about, in so many ways, how solitary her healing process is. She's dealing with discomfort and pain that I'm not able to take away. I can't alleviate it. I can't fix it. And I am someone who loves to do and fix and check things off. I say I'm like a queen of practical ministry in Unitarian Universalism. Interns who come here get a lot of practical ministry help. But there she was, kind of alone in this mysterious process, and her family were observing it. And so I just felt as I sat there, as I say, really helpless and feeling like I just wasn't able to do enough. And just as I was thinking that, one of our members, Nora Ames, reached out to me. And Nora reminded me of the importance of the small gestures that each and every one of us make all the time in our daily lives, but the small gestures we can make especially when someone is in a healing process, when someone is struggling. And it helped a lot to hear this from Nora. If you know a little bit of Nora's story, and I share with her and her family, her mom is here and her stepdad, with their permission, you know that Nora had a stroke 5 years ago when she was 31 years old. And the stroke almost killed her, the way I understand it. And it required a lot of intensive time in hospitals and rehab. But as you also know, if you know Nora, that Nora did come out of that and she survived and she also thrived. Nora is the chair of our social justice team. She leads our young adult group. If you're wondering where some of the young adults are today, they have gone to Oxnard. They're doing young adult troops in Oxnard this weekend. But as Nora was, giving me some helpful tips, she shared some of her own physical. Thank you, Brad. I'm getting a little message from up here. That was not the young adults calling from Oxnard. But Nora shared a little bit of her own recovery experience with me, and these are her words. She said, "I think being on the other side, being the caregiver, is harder. It was my mom's and my family's support, their strong belief in me, that got me through." She says, "I used to be a swimmer, and my mom described this essential role of cheerleading and support from others with the swim team metaphor. She called it pushing you down the pool." And Nora's mom and her family did an incredible job of pushing Nora down the pool. And at some point, Nora swam right into the sheltering embrace of Troop. And now we watch Nora as she nurtures and cares and loves for other people in this community, giving back some of what she received so beautifully from her family. And we have another Troop member, Taryn Sindaband, who often testifies about the power of people here showing up for him, providing shelter for him in the stormy seasons of life, those times that could easily overwhelm or become too much. And with all of your support and love and care, Taryn is better able to embrace now all of who he is. And one way we ritualize that as a community this past spring was having a naming ceremony for Taryn. And then Taryn is trying to move some of that shelter out into the world and is inviting all of us to be with him on November 2nd as we go on a walk for suicide prevention in Pasadena. And we're hoping to have a team of about 15 people who spend that morning together walking to raise awareness for suicide prevention. Wiesel reminds us that these small gestures alleviate suffering and provide sanctuary and shelter for each other. Havel Havalim. Nora's words of encouragement came just when I was feeling so helpless with my mom. Nora helped me realize that my presence would remind my mother that she wasn't just C. Wilkes, room 1055, but that my presence would remind her of all that she is, all that she will be. She is my mom. She is my dad's wife. She is friends to many. She has a spark of the divine within her. My family and I are creating our own temporary shelter around her as she heals. And of course, you all do this for others in so many different ways day to day. And maybe you don't even know how much your small gesture counts as a lifeline for someone who is just barely hanging on or who is helping to push them down the pool, to use Nora's mom's comment. It might be a smile or a greeting or a close look into someone's eyes, your careful and close attention that says to them, "I see the divine spark that is alive and well in you." And when you do that, you remind them and you remind yourself of the whole and holiness of their being as well as your own. The Psalms sing out to us, Hina matov umanayim sheva lahim gam yahad. How good it is, how pleasant it is when people dwell together. May we continue dwelling together in peace and love and continued care and support for each other. We sing our closing hymn, number 392, Hina Matov. Please rise.